the part of me that thinks categorically that, okay, here's a Catholic priest that I'm talking to, and he's talking about something like Togal. He's talking about dark retreat. He's talking about, Tumo. And there's just something that you're able to hold in these different traditions that I don't know how to even give language to that. Mm-hmm. I don't have a word for it right now. I mean, because I was planning to ask you about interreligious dialogue. That almost seems like that word doesn't even seem. That's sort of a frail. It's a frail conceptual framework to describe what you were just talking about. There's so much beyond dichotomy, like this way that you embody that through your process. And I mean, it's just something that I just think so much about the polemics that are happening in this day's world. And you're someone who, I mean, you've managed to work something out around that for yourself, and you have your own way of doing it, it sounds like, and you've had your own lineage and different traditions and different teachers. I wonder if you could just speak to that. I know that's not really a fully formed question, but there's something there that I really want to acknowledge in you and just give room for.
Yeah, of course, when I began exploring Vajrayana, not only as a scholar, but also in terms of practice, I received permission. Of course, Brother David was already at my side, but there was Father Mayul de Drie, who was a very great French lion of a monk, who was at my side. He was my confessor at the time and said I should do this. And he had himself explored India, Thailand, Madagascar. He had been in other cultures for many years. And then he ended up as the one of the officers of the Benedictine Subiaco congregation in Rome. So he had the highest esteem of the Roman authorities. This is a very distinguished person. And then the other was Abbot Tonini, who was the abbot general of the Sylvestrian Benedictines, who have monasteries in Sri Lanka. And he too knew South Asia quite well. And he too was at my side. And let us not forget June of 1992, when I managed to get, to my own surprise, tickets number 1 and 2 in the great audience hall in the Vatican, when the Pope has the big Wednesday audience. And I figured I'd be seated way in the back, and there I am down in front. And the Pope, John Paul II, now St. John Paul II, is going around the crowd and, greeting everybody and all of that. So I figured, this is going to go on forever. And by the time he gets to the front row, he'll just shake hands and say, have a nice day. But no, Pope John Paul II came down there. Next to me was a young Tibetan monk from Pokhara in Nepal, and who was in charge of the training of the young monks. He was with me as a guest, and myself in my cassock, and didn't have white hair at the time. And the Pope listened to what we were saying. He asked me, "What are you doing, and what is this dialogue?" and so on. I explained who the young monk was, and he says, "You must continue this dialogue with the Buddhists." And he pointed his finger at my heart, stabbing away. All right. So this is St. John Paul II, and at the height of his powers, all right, saying that, and making a very strong point. And I have a beautiful photograph of that moment. So, with those people backing me, I think, I have a good blessing, let's say, to do what I do. All right. And it enables me to talk about not only interreligious dialogue, which I've written about and done and all of that, but also to talk about the dialogue of religious experience on the level of experience and not just of theory. Okay. And that's very, very important. because you see, it's not only that you know the techniques and you've done them. That's not even halfway there. It's the kind of person you become because you have done those practices. You know, any of us who have ever interviewed or even spent time with some of the really great Buddhist masters, you know that they're very special people. You know, they're quirky and sometimes funny and sometimes irritable, but they can also be very, very great human beings, and they come across that way. Holiness Dalai Lama is a great example. But I remember back in 1997 interviewing many of the great Kagyu teachers in the Bodhanath area of Kathmandu for my research project that year. And my late friend, Serenity Young, came with me. And Serenity was the kind of scholar, she was a very talented writer, and she was doing her research on her laptop in her hotel room. And I said to her, Serenity, get out of the hotel room. Come and meet these people. Let's try to find out the quality of their lives. How do they live? How do they receive us? You know, what do they say when they see us? You know, you should be curious about this, Serenity. And so she came along. And later on, she wrote that, in fact, I was the person who dragged her out of the hotel room and made her look at the lived experience of Buddhists and Hindus, people of the Himalayas, and getting the feel of it by actually being in the middle of it, which is exactly what we were taught at Columbia anyway, you know, by people like Ted Riccardi, you know, who taught Himalayan anthropology, and we have the stacks and stacks of photocopies that he gave us, and he did that kind of work. He had the linguistic skills, and he showed us how to be participant observers. Okay, so naturally, now when we're talking about participant observers, we get a little bit of a handle on the question you're trying to formulate, which is that I am a participant observer of my own faith and also the faith and practice of others, and really limitlessly. You know, I've been told on a number of occasions in synagogues that, well, Father Francis, you certainly know more Hebrew than the average Jew. You know, where they're singing, you know, on Shabbat. And I don't know Hebrew at all, but I can sound out the letters. So they think I'm very talented. But you know, when we're talking about Sanskrit or Tibetan, I mean, I've actually studied those languages, and I can read the text. I can sing along with the lamas. You know, that's okay. So there is now a book about to come out called Discerning Stirrings. And that book is an account of my own spiritual development through the Christian Catholic, mainly Catholic tradition, right? Chapter after chapter, but bringing in illustrations of things I've learned from other traditions. Okay. So in that book, you begin to see the fruits of a dialogue of spiritual experience, which does not neglect the great masters of our own tradition. All right. So, speaking about holding, you know, holding in a dynamic way for our moment in history these great lineages and living them, practicing them, handing them on, reflecting on them with people who are also committed. Right? And so that's the style. That's the way I do it.